Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to True Alignment, where we talk about everything that is involved with how the brain works and healing. My name is Natalie. I'm the founder of True Alignment Academy. And today I am super excited to welcome Jana with me. So, if you didn't know, we have a program called True Alignment Academy. And in that program, we take you through healing the very root of your trauma, the very root of all the pain, and we rewire the entire brain. And in that, we are certified in what's called the trauma healing method, which there's only about 100 of us certified in the United States. It's groundbreaking. It's something that has come along that transformed my life. And ever since I got my own healing and rewired my brain, then I knew I was going to spread it to as many people as possible and share it. So Jana, welcome. She is works within the company and she is incredible. She's one of my very best friends as well. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Yes, these tools are so incredibly powerful, and we have a lot of great stuff to share today. So I'm excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. We sure do. Today we are going to cover um, trauma bonding. So essentially, we're going to talk about love bombing, trauma bonding, the stages of what that looks like. And I hope that you come today in a place of being open. And we just want to bring awareness around this because it's so significant. And so if you are joining us for the very first time, welcome. Please put hashtag live. If you are here with us live, put hashtag replay. If you have come back for the replay, if you are coming back and rejoining us, then hello, friends. We're so excited to have you. Please understand you can type any question that you want into the chat. If we don't cover it live, then I definitely will get back to you as well. So we're so happy to have y'all here. Awesome. Hi, Joanna. Hi, Jessica. Hey, Christy, Kimberly, Sabrina, Michelle. I'm so excited to have y'all. And so we're just going to jump right into it today. So we're going through the 7 stages of trauma bonding. And so essentially what trauma bonding is the essence of that is, you broke me, but you're the only one that can fix me. Like, I need you, I need you, I need you. It's a toxic relationship that happens from a place of two people that really need something from the other. They just don't understand. So it's a relationship that's very toxic and doesn't come from a place of of trust. Instead, it comes from a place of need of the things that they never got and can't supply to themselves, essentially. So the very first stage of this is called the love bombing phase. And I resonate with this so much because I've had so many trauma bonds in my past before I had the chance to actually heal and get to the root of why I created these patterns in my life of relationships of codependency, these relationships of trying to find someone to fulfill my needs instead of understanding that I could actually fulfill my own. So the love bombing phase it's that first stage. And I want to preface this talk, and this is very, very important. So trauma bonding and even the love bombing, like these stages aren't just in a romantic relationship. These stages and trauma bonding happens with friends. It can happen with between you and your kids. It can happen um, between anyone. This is all relationships. And so as you listen to this, I just want you to be really open and honest with yourself and understand this is a safe place. And so um, this gives you an opportunity to just view all of your relationships, not just a romantic one, because trauma bonding can happen between any two people. So the first stage is the love bombing phase, and that's whenever it's like, oh my gosh, this feels amazing. It's when you meet someone and they're like, you're the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. Wow, I've never loved anyone else in my life like this. Like, you're the one for me. You're my everything. Um, and if you come from that healthy parental relationship, that feels normal. If
Yeah.
you come from an unhealthy parental relationship, that's what you've always looked for. And you're like, oh, I finally found it. I finally found something to fill that void. I finally found something to fill that hole, right? So unhealthy and healthy relationships usually start the same way with that love bomb. Jana,
Yeah.
can you relate to this?
Yes, I definitely can. Oh, I was wooed and swooned and oh, it felt amazing. And you can, if you've heard that term limerence, it feels like the ultimate limerence, like, oh, this, I've never felt better. It's giddy and it gets you right where you want it, and they pull you in with that love. And the second stage of this is the trust and dependency stage. And this is where they do everything they can in that relationship to get you to trust them and become dependent on them. And I have been in a relationship too where, and you can kind of, if you're gauging your relationships and you're looking out for those red flags, these would be kind of a red flag moment where you'd be like, wow, this is moving really fast and they want me to do this and they want me to move in with them. And let's get you on my bank account. Let's switch you over to my cell phone plan.
Mhm.
That perpetrator sense, then that toxic relationship, they want you to trust them and be dependent on them because they want the control. And that's where it becomes toxic because, we are in control of us. And in a relationship, if that other partner is in control of you, those are the red flags where this is unhealthy and that enmeshment is not good. But they'll do everything you can to just get you to be dependent on them.
Right? Like, hey, I love you so much. You're incredible. Let me, move in with me.
Let me
Like,
take this. Uh-huh.
yeah. And there's always red flags that come along. What I've found is it was always hindsight for me looking back at the very end where I was like, oh, I missed a lot of red flags. So, if someone's telling you, hey, maybe this relationship isn't so healthy for you. If you have friends and family kind of like saying, hey, maybe there's something about this that just seems off. Sometimes when we get in the love bombing phase and they're rescuing, they come in for a rescue like our hero and all of these things, then we could ignore the red flags and not be able to view them. Like we get this blurred sense of reality as we're being swooned and that.
Because you think it's safe and it
Right.
feels like love. It feels like love. So we want to trust it. And like we said, if you come from unhealthy relationships, it's going to feel like the best thing that's ever happened to you. Like finally my knight in shining armor or the mother I never had or whatever the relationship is. But it's like, let me take care of everything for you so you don't have to worry about it. And that will come back to like, if you are losing your independence, that's a sign that it's not healthy.
Absolutely, which I think it brings us to the next phase, the criticism stage. So that's absolutely where you start to lose your identity. And it happens, I feel like, so slowly that you don't even know that it's happening in the moment. So I actually had a relationship where the other person started asking me to get rid of my furniture. And they're like, this furniture is outdated. And how about you take some of these pictures off the wall? Like those seem outdated. And at first I was like, the furniture, like, yeah, you know what, you're right. I think that we need new furniture. And so you helped me pick out all this new furniture. And then all of a sudden, the pictures off the wall started coming off the wall, pictures of my family, pictures of my friends. Um, and it was starting to like criticize the decisions, criticize all the tiny aspects of my life. It's almost like they started to take me apart. They started to pick out the pieces of me. So I slowly, and it happened very slowly actually, but slowly started to lose my identity and question myself, like maybe, yeah, this, like I said, something as small as a furniture. I was like, maybe I don't have very good fashion taste. Maybe I,
Trust. You lose the self-trust.
Yeah, you completely do. After after that phase of investing so much trust and dependency, that is forced upon you in that stage. And so then you start to, the criticism and the blame starts coming in. And so you start getting attacked. And sometimes that attack is so slow that you don't even realize it until you're completely wrapped up to it into it. And then it's like, oh, yeah, you're right. This is all my fault. Like there's so many things wrong with me. And that to where you turn that criticism in on yourself, you lose all this your self-trust and you start to question everything about your life at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, at that point, that's where, gaslighting starts coming into play as well. And I know that that's probably a term that everybody's heard by now talk about narcissism all over the internet. But it is gaslighting it's that crazy making and manipulation to make us feel like we're crazy. And then you go, oh gosh, I don't have any self, trust or sense of fashion, or I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a good mom. I'm, all the things. And
Right.
it's a slow fade until one day you wake up and you're like, I don't even know who I am,
Right.
you know?
Absolutely. Gaslighting, which the first time I heard that term was actually not too long ago. And I was like, what do you mean by gaslighting? But the definition of gaslighting essentially is to manipulate another person into doubting his or her perceptions, experiences, or understanding of events or what's going on. So what happens is in this they change the story on you so many times and then you get confused. So its origin comes from when they used to have gaslights a long long time ago, and so they would flicker the gaslights on and off, and the other person would say, what's going on, why are they flickering? And they would say, are you crazy? Like this, they're not flickering, what are you talking about? And it's like someone challenges your perception constantly. And so they constantly are trying to push their story onto you until you begin to doubt what your own perception is. So just like you said, Jana, it's like I don't even know who I am anymore. You
Mhm.
know, like are my other relationships even real was one of the things that I used to question myself as. Like if other people are telling me that this person is not okay, then who am I to to challenge myself and ask if they're okay when I can't even trust myself anymore?
And then we bring in self gaslighting, and it's like, well, maybe I am crazy. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe everybody knows what's best for me but me. And you shut down those red flags because the enmeshment in that relationship and manipulation, you've lost your trust in who you are and your confidence. And that's when it gets scary
Yeah,
because then we can't function and then we question everything about our reality.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And and then you start to believe that, I mean, the red flags at that point, I feel like there's no way to even notice them because you've gained such a trust and dependence into this person. So you're totally blinded by any red flags, and you start believing that your situation, another form of self-gaslighting is believing that your situation isn't that bad compared to other people. So you start dismissing your emotions. You start dismissing anything and saying, you know what, maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I didn't interpret that situation right. Maybe he wasn't that mean, or maybe that person wasn't that mean and I just got it wrong. So then that leads us to the next stage. So the fifth stage of this is giving up control. So you see how we've like slowly the process slowly has taken us and um and broken us down and down and down to the point where we don't even know who we are anymore
Mhm.
in this relationship, in our
Yeah.
own life. And then now it's to the point where we start to give up control. At that point, you don't even know what to believe anymore. In
You
your
know,
own, go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Jana.
was just going to say at that point, um, the toxic relationship, a lot of times the other person will instigate fights just to trigger you and make sure that they've still got control over you. And I know this firsthand. I mean, it was easier, just rather than stand up for myself and stand up for what I felt was right, to just shut up and just not have a voice. And, we've all known that when we lose our voice and we lose our identity, everything else around us starts to crumble. And it's easier to just say nothing and shut ourselves down. And usually in these two types of relationships, you've got the person that's being propagated on, and then the person that's propagating it. And so, one in control and one that's being crumbled. And oftentimes I have found when you try and stand up for that, you won't win. You won't win, because that other person, they have no capability to take accountability for themselves, and you're fighting a losing battle. And it's a very sad situation, and you have to really fight to find yourself back again.
Absolutely. And you try to find your voice, right? And I speak from firsthand too, because this is a pattern. And usually it's a pattern of the person that's propagating and the person that's being propagated. Like, it's a pattern for both people, for both sides here. And it's a pattern essentially that is love me, need me, see me. Like, because I have never had it, fill my void, please. And then once you get it, you either go into that place of like that prosecution and toxicity from the place of control and manipulation, or you go into it, which there's also codependency intertwined in that, or you go into it from a full place of codependency, like take care of me, love me, and I'll do whatever you need me to do as long as you love me, as long as you take care of me. So you have those two mixtures, and it was very huge pattern in my life that I saw. And once you do lose that voice, the problem is that once you get under that manipulation and you're like, oh, there's finally someone who loves me and who's taking care of me, because I've never felt this in my whole life. And I remember when this person loved me so much and I was so special, and so as you start to lose yourself, it's almost like your memory goes back to that constantly. And then if you try to have a voice, like you said, that voice gets shut down and shut down and shut down to the point where you just stop trying.
You stop trying, but you also hold on to any morsel of love, and we'll hit on
Yeah.
that more in the cycle. But you want that dopamine and you want that love so much that you're willing to be quiet and you're willing to shut your mouth, because you want what you thought was safe and you want it to stay there, and you don't want to lose what you thought you had.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Because that's what you feel like is that true, real love and real relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So then from that stage, well, and I just want to take a moment actually, because that losing yourself stage is very important. And what happens is when your voice is taken away, you essentially lose your identity, and you allow other people to be your voice. So I think this is very important that we all take a second and really look at the relationships around us, and especially with children. I think this is super, super important and so significant, you know, um, because parents who never let their child have real feelings, like, stop crying, you're not hurt, what's the matter with you? Like, you don't know what love is. Like, what's the matter with you? Like, not allowing our kids to have a voice. If,
And, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, out of that's often how narcissism is birthed,
Yeah.
is from parents that shut their children down like that. And I know we hear narcissism all over the internet, and narcissism in itself is just trauma.
Mhm.
Trauma where they could no longer cope and deal with their emotions. And so they learned coping mechanisms to keep themselves safe and make them feel important. And when they get shut down of you stop crying, why are you showing your emotions? Eventually that child learns that it's not safe to do so. So they're in search for a way to cope.
Exactly. Exactly. And so toxic relationships and trauma bonding is all coming from both parties to find a place of love and to try to cope in the best way that they know how, with the best way that they know how. It's not like they go into the relationship, I feel like, saying, I'm going into this so that I can make sure the other person hurts. It's just the best that they know how to do. And we each have a choice and we each have to own up to our choices. So this is, it's just it's the willingness in which we heal. If we don't have willingness, then we can't improve ourselves. Like um we can't change our lives. We can't change our behaviors. So back to that, the importance of holding space for your children, for holding space in your every relationship, not just kids, you know, and maybe you shut down your kids' emotions or someone else because you don't even know how to deal with your own emotions.
Been there.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's taught us,
Mhm.
right? Who's taught us how to deal with our own emotions, except to teach us to shove it down and shove it down, right? So, there's two things to do moving forward if you feel like you don't have space, right? Um, Number one is you got to look at healing yourself. You got to look at checking into your own emotions and figuring out how you can hold space for yourself. How can you hold space for your emotions? Because our emotions are just coming up in communication with us. But when it comes to our kids, when it comes to different relationships, like it's important to use empathy. So when someone else is showing emotion, acknowledge their feelings,
Yes,
acknowledge them. Hey, what, that must feel terrible. Allow them to be seen, heard, known, and understood.
absolutely. It's
And
huge.
yeah, and then give them the voice. Give them the voice. Instead of telling them what to do, give them a voice and say, what do you think you should do? Instead of telling them how to feel. Stop crying. You should feel this way. You should feel horrible for what you just did. I mean, instead of telling them how to feel, ask them.
Yeah. And saying, how does you feel? Where do you feel that in your body? What does that anger or sadness feel like? You're learning to identify what emotion feels like in our body because we can't heal what we can't feel.
Exactly. So identifying that is very, very important. In fact, that's something I've started doing with my own son. I'm like, you know what? You're really angry. Okay. Where do you feel it? Where do you feel it? And so we've started that process, and I'll tell you, it's created, ever since I've been able to have the emotional space to hold for him, since my healing, it's created a huge difference in him. All right, so then we get to the seventh stage, and that's the addiction to the cycle. And you mentioned it before, Jana, the addiction of that dopamine, right?
Yes, yeah, and when you get to that point where your relationship's on the line, you feel all the red flags at that point. You know you can't trust yourself. You've lost your identity, and you really are just like, where do I go from here? And you keep coming back for more, and you stay in that relationship that's unhealthy because of several reasons. Number one, you don't have good bonding. Boundary set up. Secondly, you haven't healed yourself and learned to regulate your own emotions. And you keep going back to that cycle because you're looking for that love bond. You're looking for that dopamine hit that is like crack cocaine. I mean, I've been there and I've had to catch myself. And I also want to hit on grace. As you might be going through this journey yourself right now, give yourself grace. You may take two steps forward and one step back for a while. I can tell you, coming out of a divorce from a toxic relationship and healing from it, I still have good days and bad days. And guess what? I can still be used. I can still help others. So give yourself grace as you're starting to heal and just know that we're here to help you through the process.
Absolutely, 100%. We
But
are.
that cycle will start over and over again.
It will.
uh, until you learn to do something different for your own healing.
Yes, and this is the first stage right here is awareness. Is awareness. And you're right, that cycle is a cycle of cortisol, dopamine, stress, and cortisol, everyone gets addicted to cortisol. That's the chaos. That's the probably what most people live in their entire life, which I'll be touching on over the next couple of weeks of what that looks like, that life of stress, right? And so then you go through all this stress, you have all this chaos, the relationship is super toxic, there's fights, there's all these things, and then all of a sudden you get the love bomb, and that's a dopamine. And that's what keeps you coming back. Then it's like, oh my gosh, I remember this vividly. He took me out, he took me dancing, like he got me my favorite flowers, like, and for me, with that space of not understanding a healthy relationship and just understanding in that moment that it was someone that fulfilled all my needs and all my wants, especially after having a stressful time with them, then it was like, oh, I'm hooked. I'm hooked again. And then you go through the chaos again. And then it's another season of all the manipulation and all of the anger and all of the things with this person. But then they do something again and there's the dopamine hit. And it's like, oh, they do love me. See, I knew they loved me. I'm
Yep.
just going to ignore all the red flags. I'm going to ignore all the advice everyone else has told me because I can't love me. I can't see me. Love me, need me, see me. Like,
Yes.
give me love because I don't know how to give love to myself.
Yeah.
And that brings us, I know we're coming to a close here. And so I just want to tell you, thank you, Jana, for reminding me of that. Please give yourself grace. Please give yourself grace if you're in this cycle. Years and years and years I spent in this cycle, and only until I could heal the very deepest roots of why that cycle started, only then can I start to create a change. And the first stage is awareness, right? That's the very first stage. So if you get off this call and all of a sudden you gain a little awareness, you're growing.
Yes.
You're growing.
Baby steps.
Yes, you're starting your healing process right then and there. If you are in this cycle and you're like, I am aware of it, I don't know what to do to get out of it, I don't feel like I'm in a place where I can stand in my own power and get out of it, then I want you to reach out to me. There's a link below here that you can click on and let's just go talk. Let's just have a conversation and see how we can help you. Because I guarantee you that there is once you stand in your power and once you learn how to fill that void with the love for yourself and not, you don't need that external validation. Wow, is it powerful?
It's huge. It's amazing. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Being able to love ourselves first and stand in that authenticity.
Yeah,
Because we can't have a healthy relationship until we give ourselves that first.
exactly. All right. Well, thank y'all so much for joining us today. And please reach out. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.